In your book, you write about the Palestinian struggle and about the role that it plays in the Islamic self-perception, in the politics of these twin social movements, both Islamist nationalist social movements as well as the transnational jihadist social movement. And, one thing that I want you to talk about that, but I also just want, as a provocation, to say that I've always been very vexed by the outsized role played by the Palestinian experience versus, for example, Gujarat, where you had pogroms against the Muslim population there, or simply the kind of dire poverty that many Muslims live in Bangladesh, where my parents are from, throughout sub-Saharan Africa, etc. It just seems interesting to me that the struggles of the Palestinian population, which are absolutely real, just play such an outsized role relative to all these other things. And sometimes it reminds me of the kind of Arabic ethnocentrism of the Islamic world, something that a number of folks have commented on, and I just sort of wonder, what do you think about that?
No, I mean, look, you're absolutely right, and let's not forget, the oppression of the Chechens, the genocide of the Bosnians, the horrible situation of the Uyghur Muslims under Chinese rule. Yes, you're right, but the fact of the matter is that for better or worse, Palestine has become the sort of sole pan-Islamism. It's the only thing that the Muslim world has in common anymore, and certainly the only thing that the Arab world has in common anymore, is this sort of Palestinian intifada propaganda. It's become, the most obvious means of creating an identity, and that's precisely why, by the way, that the jihadists rely on it so much. Here's the funny thing, is that, bin Laden couldn't care less about the Palestinians, and certainly he doesn't care about the Palestinian struggle for statehood. Bin Laden is an anti-nationalist. The last thing that he wants to see is a Palestinian state. He doesn't care about that. Which, by the way, is why you don't see any jihadists, any foreign jihadists, fighting alongside, Hamas or Islamic Jihad. They wouldn't be welcomed there. They have vastly different viewpoints of the problem and how to deal with it. But what is brilliant about the jihadist movement is that it has used the problem of Palestine, the grievance of Palestine, as the sort of easiest way to kind of connect these local and global grievances and create this collective identity amongst Muslims who may have nothing else in common with each other, who don't share the same ethnicity, the same culture, the same language, and don't even share the same religion. Jihadism, religiously speaking, is quite heterogeneous, but who can come together and create a sense of belonging and identity based around a set of local and global grievances, the most obvious of which is the suffering of the Palestinians. Now, we could say that it's not fair, that it's not representative, that it's sort of a simplification of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. All of that is irrelevant. The fact of the matter is that this is reality, and that unless it's addressed, that grievance will always be used to fuel these kinds of both Islamist and jihadist movements. This is problem number one. It's the beginning and end of every discussion that has to do with any kind of religio-political movement in the Muslim world, and until it is properly dealt with, it's sort of impossible to kind of not just confront these movements, but to even hope for any kind of real, lasting social, political, religious, or even economic reform in the Arab and Muslim world, because Palestine will always be the crutch that's used to deflect any kind of responsibility from these governments themselves, from Egypt, from Jordan, from Algeria, from Morocco, or from Iran. It's used to deflect any responsibility for their own, lack of development.
One related argument that I always found interesting, Michael Scott Duran some years ago wrote a piece for Foreign Affairs in which he argued that protests about Palestine are oftentimes the only means through which religious minorities, for example, the Shia Muslims of Saudi Arabia and other, kind of similarly placed groups, can actually express their grievances, though they're actually not allowed to articulate their own grievances through this kind of protest around, the plight of the Palestinians. Sure. Kind of they're able to actually engage in some kind of civic activism.